Oh, here comes Bob as well. Who told Bob we were zooming?
Pay the price.
Here comes Bob.
Hey, sir. Mark, welcome.
What's going on, man?
You know, same old.
Did you get to do Mossy?
Is
Did
everybody
not get to do Mossy.
Well, I
Nope.
didn't get it.
I don't.
I didn't get anything on Mirror Fork, so
Ah,
that turned out to be extremely small water.
that's too bad. Seasonally,
Doorway.
hey, sir, how are you? All right.
I think he's muted.
That's the. We don't want Bob muted now, do we?
No, we want you to control it.
Can he talk with his hands?
Doorway.
Hey,
Okay,
sir.
I'm done with the abuse already.
There we go.
Oh.
It doesn't take long before we all start taking shots. All right, welcome everyone. We're recording this for YouTube posting later in the week. We are tying a kind of standard wet fly, but I chose the February red variation just for grins. I have some red threads, some brass wire, some partridge feather. Kathy included some peacock herl and also some dubbing. I don't want to say this is the fly with the most variations, but it has got to be up there with the amount of variations you can tie with this fly because the building blocks for this fly are so varied. Any color dubbing, any color thread, any color wire, you can really expand. And in fact, they sell partridge in many colors as well. You can really expand the design of this fly based on your local waters and what you're seeing emerging and what you're seeing kind of hitting that stage where it's going from subsurface to the surface. And that is the whole point of this fly. Ultimately, when this fly is fished across the current and then downstream, it sinks a bit. And then when it hits the end of your fly line, it starts to come up off the bottom. And that is indicative of a nymph that's trying to make the big jump to the sky. So it's a really neat fly. It's fun to fish. Hey, Cindy, welcome. It's fun to fish it. You get some pretty aggressive strikes because the fly does rise so quickly that the fish are pretty quick to snag it. And it's just it's a good little fly to have this time of year. It's a great fly as spring is starting to hit and waters are just starting to warm up. So definitely keep some wet flies in your box.
Hey, Brandon, I haven't done a whole lot with soft hackles. If you were using it, like hanging off as a dropper, what would be like your typical length so that it got that action? Or would that just kind of depend on the depth of the water you're in?
I don't think I'd use it as a dropper, honestly, Mark. I think.
Oh, you'd use it by itself?
Yeah, I don't personally because there's not a ton of weight. So it's not going to really drop very much. It's more of that middle column and then column. It's not going to really pull down into the deeper waters. I personally would not fish it as a dropper per se. I know people probably do it, but it's not going to hit that deep water like you kind of seek with a dropper. You with me on that?
Check.
And please, Kathy, Bob, Rosie, Cindy, Sayward, Becky, Bill, Joy, or Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, because I take correction well.
Well, you can put it underneath a bead head at Green Hill, that first stocking, and I was using that shaky Beely.
Yep.
And I was using a wet one, and I had that about 12 inches underneath the bead head, and they were killing the shaky Beely, the wet Beely.
Okay, a little bit, not so much the wet fly though per se. The shaky Beely's kind of involved fly. Is that true?
Well, I tied some up like a wet fly.
Okay, I got you. With some.
Yeah.
All right. Look, Mark, you might be onto something, man. Throw it up for 14 inches of 12 to 14 inches of success on it and see what happens.
I've Yeah, the soft hackles are the one fly that I have not put a lot. I have been trying a lot, but that's just ones that I have not put a whole lot of effort into using. No particular reason. I'm just those are the ones I'm the least familiar with. So
Yeah. I can join you right there. They're the ones that I have the least use with. I've used them, yes, but my go-to is typically that nymph dropper like you're talking about, or a dry.
I
So
think it's the action that you're talking about, and I know that doesn't sound complicated, but it's like I'm still reeling from, okay, there's dries and then there's subsurface, right? And then those emergers seem to be like in the in between thing, so that seems like there's some kind of magical action that happens that I'm not able to do.
It's witchcraft.
Sorcery.
If I could interject here, the a soft tackle on the swing imitates only one thing. It's so fast coming up off the bottom that it is a caddis imitation. And so when I fish a soft tackle, I put 2 soft tackles on, and one will be lower than the other, and they'll both be rising at an alarming rate when the line starts to drag. And I also, the most effective combination I have is to put a soft tackle on the top fly, the leader fly, and on the point fly, the one below it, a elk hair caddis, a dry fly that I fish
wow.
wet. Because as the caddis rises through the water column very quickly, they go from the bottom of the river through 3 feet of water to full flight in about 4 seconds. So their wings are coming out as they're coming up in the water column. So I just offer that. That's my observation.
I have caught
Sorry.
a whole bunch of using elk hair caddis as dries and them sinking a little bit because I haven't, put enough floating on them, or I need to put some floating on them. I have noticed catching quite a few as they're kind of like drowning and I'm reeling them back in. So that makes sense.
Perfect. So that's a support of Bob's claim there. I'll take it. That's great. That's good Discord. I like it.
Brandon, not to delay your time, but for Rosie, what is a shaky Beely?
Bill, Bill, is Bill still on?
I'm still on.
Tell her what it is.
It's a dance move.
It's predominantly a Western fly. It's imitates an October caddis, so it's sort of orange in color. Has a lot of flash in it. It is a wet fly, unweighted, but it's become a pretty popular fly in the West as well as the East.
And in Green Hill Park.
Okay, thank you.
I could probably get a picture of it up here for you, Cindy. I will say Orvis does not carry it because I wanted to grab one from Orvis just to see the pattern and kind of study it because Rosie raved about it last time around. But they do not have it. They looked at me like it was time for me to leave the store. I kept asking for this.
I'm sure I can find it. I just never heard of it before, which doesn't mean a whole lot.
Here's one. Can you see that?
Yeah, pretty well.
It's good
Wow.
size.
Let me get you a macro.
Oops.
There it is. It's a tension grabber.
All right, I'm going to use Zoom in all of its greatness here. And I'm going to share my screen because I can. And then we will all be able to see the shaky Beely here shortly.
By the way, Brandon, you'll appreciate this, but I'm actually rating claims while we're having this meeting on overtime.
Overtime, buddy.
Oh, there
All
it
right.
is.
Everybody see that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice looking.
That's it.
Fantastic. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. It's got a little tail. It's got a little flash off the rear there. You've got your, maybe it's a floss wrap kind of ribbing. And then that beautiful either grouse or partridge And what is that Hackle there at the collar? Anybody?
Ostrich, orange ostrich herl.
Ostrich, goodness gracious. All right. So there you go. There's a lot going on there.
Kathy, did you tie that?
Not that one. No,
Oh, okay.
I think that was probably a professional one that a pattern that we went by.
All right, without further ado, let's kick this thing off. I'm going to switch video cameras here to the good one. Hopefully y'all can see that fairly well. I have noticed if you right click on my screen and click pin, it'll kind of throw mine into a more locked in location. So if you are following along at home, you can keep it on your screen. All right, we're going to start with the thread base here. For me, it's a size 14 wet hook here, and I'm throwing on red thread, and I'm going to work my way back all the way to the bend. I like to put a nice red base of thread down because I want that color to be pretty vibrant. So I might do 1 or 2 layers of thread there before hanging and tying in my ribbing. All right, next. Kathy, in her greatness, sent along some brass ribbing for me, some brass wire. So I'm going to pull off about 4 inches of that for ease of workability. And I'm going to tie that in right off the bend there. Cover that up real well with a few wraps, and then run your wraps forward to approximately 2/3 of the way forward. If you notice issues with your taper at this point, try to kind of iron them out. You do want a bit of a taper from thin to a little chubby there at the 2/3 mark. So a gradual taper going forward is always preferred. And taking my wire now, I'm going to wrap forward. These wraps are to imitate that segmentation found on a bug. So keep them evenly spaced and as far forward as your thread at the 2/3 mark. It's not bad. Not great. As usual, you can either helicopter, like I tried to do last time, works great this time, or you can snip it off there at the base. A few more wraps to cover up any sharp edges of your brass wire there. And we're ready for our dubbing. Now, Kathy sent along Peacock Hurl. She also sent me a pinch of some very fine dubbing. And what it's gonna do is build up a little spear behind the partridge so that when the feather kind of lays down the hook, it bumps over the dubbing ball or the Peacock Hurl and gives the body that trapped air look of the nymph as it heads towards the surface. I think I'm gonna do my dubbing ball here, and then with time, which I think we'll have extra, I'll do the Peacock Hurl there behind the partridge. So I'm gonna do a pretty sparse noodle here, but we're gonna wrap it quite a few times in the same place to give us that sphere of dubbing.
Oh yeah. Hey Brandon, that rainbow warrior you tied last time
Yes, sir.
worked. I showed you it worked like a charm, but I must have. You mentioned something about dubbing wax, which sounds like it might be a good idea because after using it for a while, pretty much all
Yeah.
of the dubbing in mine kind of came off.
Yeah.
Is that what that does? Is that just kind of keep it on the thread, or is that more of me twisting it on? Probably not that
it's
great.
it's the twist probably, but again, wear and tear on dubbing is just a fact of life. This is what I have, Jerry. It's just wax. I mean, it literally looks like wax.
Does the webbing need to be tied in the front or the back?
Tell me again there, Sayward.
Does that stuff that you have on the
The
thing
dubbing.
now? Yeah, the dubbing. Does it need to be in the front or the back, or is it in the middle?
If you just twist it on, we wanted it about 2/3 of the way up the shank.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't paying attention.
No, you're fine. Mark, to answer your question, I would definitely invest in it. It's pretty great stuff when it comes to managing really fine dubbing. And one tube will, without a doubt, last you your lifetime if you live an average amount of time, which is an additional 40 years.
Hey.
Hey, Alan, welcome.
Alan,
All right, my dubbing sphere looks monstrous, but it's really not. I might have a profile here that's misleading. And I might brush that out to let it lay down the body a bit. But what that's going to do is keep my partridge wrapped around the hook, around the dubbing sphere there, and really give us that body as the fly rises through the water column. The final ingredient is your partridge or your grouse. I think partridge is typically the preferred feather for this fly. And I want to show you the best way to prepare a partridge feather. So typically they arrive something like this, which is not preferred. When I'm done prepping them, they look something like this, which is highly preferred. So what I'll do is I will strip off all of the webby, useless feathers there at the base just by pulling them back until most of the web, and by webbed feathers, I mean not clean barbs. And so I'm left with that, right? All the webbing is gone. And then what I'll do is I'll pull back the good stuff here, the longest section of the feather. I'll pull that away from the tip there. And you just have to kind of make a decision, like at which point am I getting the good stuff and which is too short. And that is basically what you're left with at the end of the day. For a 14 fly, you kind of have to use your best guess as far as length of your barbs there. You're going to only wrap this 2 times around the fly. So you're going to want only enough. I mean, that's 2 wraps easy right there once you start wrapping this hackle around. Some of the longer pieces that I found tonight might actually be too long for a 14. And you can see the size difference in the, let's see if I can actually do that. Backwards. Okay, there. One is markedly longer than the other. So I'm going to choose the shorter of the 2 here. Hackle pliers, highly recommended. I have mine on standby. Kathy, we've had a few more participants join. I'm not sure if you can see that.
yes, I do. I
All right,
can see it.
fantastic.
Thanks.
I'm going to grab the tip there. Okay, you're going to grab Unfortunately, it's the most fragile portion of the feather. That's okay. Hold on, reset. I'm not going to grab that. I'm going to grab here. The durable part of the feather. You're tying in at the fragile point of the feather. So I'm laying right on top. Okay. And I'm going to take 1 or 2 thread wraps right there against my dubbing ball. This is fragile. And I'm going to take some wraps towards the hook eye. Fragile, gentle, careful wraps. While you wrap, you want to be pulling those hackles backward. Why? So they lay perfectly. So I do this pinch. There's a pinch motion. If you pinch and pull backwards as you wrap, they'll all lay down as they should. It's going to be a process. As you wrap, you are pinching and pulling backward so that they lay as you want. Pinching and pulling backward. If you've done it right, you have this pretty cool little cape that is formed on or near the dubbing sphere that you created. Whew, that was stressful. It's not supposed to be stressful, it's supposed to be relaxing. But on TV, it's stressful.
When you're the teacher, it's stressful.
Right, everybody's looking at me. All right, now you can get rid of the part you tied in. You can get rid of any excess feather that you may not have used. And we're gonna tie a nice little head on the top, on the front of this fly. As you tie the head, you're gonna build up a nice little thread dam that will help those feathers kind of lay down as they should. Look at that. Gosh. Thank you, Fly. I appreciate you. This one cooperated and it makes me feel good. We're gonna throw a whip finish on here. If you don't have a whip finish yet, you're on my list. Because if your fly falls apart now, well, that's nobody's fault, but somebody who didn't learn how to whip finish early on in these instruction classes. I personally will now put a little dollop of, the Solar Res in to lock everything in place. And so there is that, well used. Somehow I went 2 years without ever using this stuff. Now I use it on every single fly. Take your needle and kind of spread that around. Lock everything down. Try not to get your feathers mixed in. We want them to be able to move free. And we have our, perhaps the greatest looking wet fly I've ever tied in my life. Questions, comments, concerns, critiques are all welcome.
Looks good.
But I can mute you if you get to be a little excessive with the critiques.
That is Charlie Stamper that has joined us.
Oh, fantastic. Charlie, thank you for coming by. I did mention taking your dubbing brush and maybe brushing out some of that dubbing if you feel like it's a little chunky. you can do that now. As Mark was saying, it will kind of degrade as you fish it. So there may not be a reason to do that. But that is my first fly here tonight. I'll try a version with the peacock herl. I can only hope it turns out as well, if not better.
Okay, Brandon, so the difference between a wet fly hackle and a dry fly hackle.
Ooh, fantastic question. Wow, that could have been a trivia question. You stole it.
Well, I definitely wouldn't have known the answer.
Who is that, Cindy?
Yeah.
Identify yourself. All right. So, Cindy, in my opinion, wet fly hackle is very flowy and form-fitting and will kind of lay down rather easily when damp or wet. Dry fly hackle, on the other hand, the entire point is to stay on top of the water's surface and water very easily. And so dry fly hackle is typically stiffer and shorter and sheds water and tries to skate on top of the film of the water as opposed to get underneath it, absorb water, and ride in the water column. Now you can, if you work hard enough, like Mark was saying, you can take any dry fly and soak it and get it down. This fly is going to sink a whole lot faster than your average dry fly will because of the hackle differences.
So it really comes
Hey,
down
Brandon,
to knowing
Brandon,
characteristics of the hackle feathers you're working with.
Yeah, I would say so. Go ahead,
In
sir.
the water. Or on
hey,
the water.
Brandon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cindy, to your question, if you get a neck from a rooster, the hackles are very, very stiff, and that's what you use for dry fly. Theodore Gordon, who was the river keeper in Latort Stream in Pennsylvania, invented the Quill Gordon, and with that, the design of a dry fly that would float on the hackle and the tail. And he used a rooster to do that. If you want to fish a soft, a wet fly, you would use a hen hackle, a hen neck, which is a very, very soft and fibrous feather, much like a partridge. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, now that makes sense. Thank you.
That was probably 5 cents, sir. I'm gonna kick it up to a nickel. Because
shame.
truly, that's the kind of knowledge that I hope to someday have. So I sincerely appreciate it. And it's captured on video for posterity.
So some of you may not know that Cindy is the program lead for one of the programs in the Tidewater area, but she makes calls on the local VA there. So Cindy, isn't your program sort of shut down right now because of COVID?
Yes, that's correct, Becky. I had one participant who was outside of the inpatient program we worked with. He had some medical issues come up, and I don't have the background experience to teach stuff for him. So I said if he was interested, he could work with Hampton Roads or Tidewater. I'm still in the definitely still on the very nascent end of the learning curve.
That's okay. At least you're on the curve. And it's certainly appreciated. Feel free to send anybody our direction if needed.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Are you
I'm gonna
tying,
try.
Cindy?
Go ahead.
I
I'm
was
sorry?
just, are you tying?
Not right now. No,
No.
I'm going to go back and look at it again because I haven't had a
okay.
chance to pull all the materials I needed and make sure I had everything.
I'm gonna go to fly number 2. I'm gonna completely change my color scheme. I'm gonna go orange body and peacock herl. Just hey, why not? And see what happens. That's part of the fun for me is to tie on a fly that I tied and then fish it and just say, well, that didn't work at all. I get a lot of satisfaction out of trying something that maybe has never been tried before. And even if your average fall fish, whitefish, whatever you want to call it, shows up and takes a snap at it, that's a victory.
Did you see that the well, I guess it's the DWR now, but they had posted a guy that had a trophy fall fish. I was like, I couldn't believe that was even a thing.
I don't know if I'd want my picture in the paper for that.
I know, that's exactly what I was like. That's got to be a joke. And sure enough, he's in there. I'm like, man, you must have really run out of things to do. I'm like, a trophy fall fish. Okay. All right.
Yeah, he went home and bragged to his significant other. Honey, guess what? Set state record. All right, here we go. So I've got my orange thread laid down. Still same procedure with wrapping some wire forward. I don't have a name for this fly. This is just me doing a variation of a pattern. Tie that brass wire in there real good. Work it forward. If your profile is messed up, once again, let's get that looking real good. Oh. All right, I'll take that. I'm gonna wrap my brass forward here. I have a new fishing dog in my house. My family lost our dog in August after 15 years of greatness. And
Oh, man.
yeah, it was a rough day. We picked up
Oh, man.
last weekend a 4-month-old deaf Australian Shepherd rescue. And he's gorgeous, but he can't hear you through no fault of his own. And so we've been working through sign language with that animal and kind of the expectations of the house.
Brandon, did you know that Ken Siegel and his wife have deaf dogs? And
I did not know that.
They have had deaf dogs for a long time, so they could give you some.
Oh, I will definitely pursue that. That's a great local resource.
That's Kyle's mother and father-in-law.
Right. Yeah, I'll look into that. Thank you, Kathy.
Speaking of,
Go ahead.
I don't know how many people know this, but Kyle is selling his flies at the that consignment shop there in Wasena, that Roanoke Mountain Adventures.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They've got a whole table set up of fishing stuff, and Kyle has quite a few of his flies over there for sale. So if anybody wants to go check that out.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great shop for consignment. I've had a few items go through there as well, just extras. It sells pretty quick with the local waters we have. I'm gonna lay down this peacock herl now instead of a dubbing ball. And with peacock herl being as fragile as it is, I'm gonna throw in a insurance policy here real quick. And I will gently wrap this peacock in and around this 2/3 spot of my hook. Right up against that thread, leaving room to tie in our partridge. It's pretty great. Couple wraps there, and you can trim off your excess. All right. Grab your prepped partridge if you have it ready. Hackle pliers. You're going to lay that directly on top with the good side facing up. As you wrap away, you're going to have those feathers all fall towards the back. My hackles are trying to head back to their home, not where I have them. There we go. All right. And 2 wraps away from you, pinching and pulling everything backwards as you go. Easy. As I predicted, this one is not behaving nearly as well as the previous. Two wraps to lock it in place. Trim. All right, we'll build up that thread head now, which, as I said before, will help push all of the hackles back and streamline them a bit before it even hits the water. And we can whip finish. A little bit of the good stuff here on a dubbing needle for accuracy. A bit of a mess there I need to clean up, it looks like. And that is fly number 2. And if anybody has a creative name for it, I'm open to suggestions. All right. And you can probably imagine if you slick that down a bit, either dip it in water that you have at your desk or otherwise moisten your fingers, you're going to see that it really does streamline and look pretty good underwater. So we're back. Questions, comments, concerns? Oh, it's my fly. There she is. Definitely not the hardest fly you'll ever tie. Just kind of a deft touch. There aren't any crazy techniques, I don't think, other than tying in that partridge. So that's encouraging for the novice fly tyer, if that's where you feel like you're at. Sometimes I feel like that's where I'm at. You're oddly quiet, and it's very disconcerting.
Hey, Brandon.
Fine.
Hey, Brandon.
Sir,
Great job, man.
thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you,
I would
Brandon.
offer a point of entomology here, recently discovered on Wolf Creek with Mark. He caught a 22-inch rainbow and gave me false credit.
Okay.
What we saw were a bunch of very small black stoneflies emerging, and they were in my hair, what there is of it, and my hat and my neck. They were hatching everywhere. This time of year, there are 2 stoneflies that hatch in Virginia waters, and they're both black, and under a magnifying glass, they both look exactly the same. It's the winter stonefly and the little winter stonefly. Usually the small one follows the large one, and they generally hatch in January, late December, January, and early February. And you don't catch them with a dry fly. You catch them in the riffles. And so I gave Mark and Scott Barrier, who was with me, a fly called the CK nymph, which I sent to you.
Yes, sir.
And I tie them in size 12 through 18. And I gave Scott and Mark both that fly, and they both hammered them on the fly. Right, Mark?
Yeah, they hit it up.
Yeah. And so if you want to look it up. But I'm surprised at how early they're starting. But if you're going fishing this winter, in the next month, 2 months, you want to tie up a bunch of these in different sizes and different weights. Don't put a bead on them, but put some lead wire on the shank. That's my 2 cents. Thanks, Brandon.
Sir, those hackle that you wrap the CK nymph with, is that a grizzly hackle?
It's a grizzly rooster hackle, which
Okay.
is a dry fly hackle, Cindy.
Yeah.
It's small size for the hook. If you size a hackle for a dry fly, this is much smaller for a CK nymph.
Okay.
And you trim it differently. You trim it you trim all the hackle off the bottom, most of the hackle off the top, and very lightly on the sides.
Okay, so you really want that stiff profile.
Right. Now, if you order it online, you'll get a big goober. There you go.
Yep,
Yeah.
you got a little dry hackle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
And it's very sparsely tied with Antron, Zelon, amber, both, or lemon wood duck as a husk,
Nice.
trailing husk.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I'm going to stop recording.
Hey, I'll tell you what, Brandon, just to let everybody know, there is a phenomenal documentary about Joe Humphreys from up in Pennsylvania on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
It's called Live the Stream. And I don't know if you guys know who that is, but obviously he's like this kind of like one of the godfathers of fly fishing. And I guess he learned from George Harvey, like I was talking with Bob about, but he just seems like a really interesting guy, and he's kind of pioneered a lot in fly fishing. But it's a very well done documentary, and it's free on Amazon. So
does he have that kind of trademark fly vest?
He does the chest box.
Yeah. I know you're talking about. Okay. Yeah, we'll check it out.
Brandon, why don't you
Kathy.
tell everybody about Friday, what you're doing Friday?
Okay, this Friday there will be a marathon fly tying event hosted by Healing Waters, and specifically a few of our local chapters that have kind of teamed up. We're going to tie for 4 hours straight, with everybody kind of having the limelight somewhere within that 4 hours, but it'll be a Microsoft Teams meeting that typically, is like a Zoom, but it's going to be running for 4 hours. Slots, I'm going to be actually tying this fly, and we're going to have some other tires on there. We're going to have people demonstrating knots. There'll probably be some storytelling. There will probably be some general camaraderie. It's going to be a Microsoft event, so you do need to have some software, I believe, installed prior to or when you sign up for it. And pretty neat little exposition of skills across many tires, and tune in, at a certain time. It keeps going for a few hours past. Kathy, what I miss?
Is there like a prize or something, or is everybody just getting together to tie, or are you I guess that's what I'm at. Are you competing, or are you just, is everybody just getting together to tie?
It's demonstration only. Mark, if you
I got
a prize, I could send you something.
Hey, Mark, this is Cindy. I've got the schedule here that Bill Campbell, our regional coordinator, sent out. So at 12, they're doing welcome and introductions. Brandon says you're on at 12:05.
That's the first I've heard of it. Thank you.
For the February red soft hackle.
Yep.
Then at 1:15, there's a break and discussion. At 1:30, Brian Rosensteel is doing the Royal Wolf. And then at 2:30, there's another break. 2:45, Kyle Chanitz is demonstrating a fly yet to be determined. And then at 3:45, general discussion on how we can improve our next tying marathon. And there'll be some knot tying at the end if there's interest. And it's been opened up, throughout Project Healing Waters around the country. But it's being hosted, it was coordinated by people from our region. And what Bill sent out does have, it looks like, and I can send you this, Kyle. It looks like, or I'm sorry, Brandon. It does have the recipes for your February red soft hackle and for the Royal Wolf.
Okay, great. Yeah, that should be, it's interesting. It's a good idea. It kind of makes sure everybody has a time. If some times aren't convenient, maybe they can hit one of these other times during the marathon.
Yeah, so Kathy, it looks like you're on this address list. I just saw it. It came out, I don't know, 3:30,
Right.
3:45 this afternoon.
Okay, thank you.